He gave an answer that has unsettled readers for two. Jesus said the parables were not simple at all. He said they were hiding something. When his own disciples asked him why he spoke this way, he gave an answer that has unsettled readers for 2,000 years. He said he taught in parables so that seeing they may not see and hearing they may not understand. Read that again. He was not using stories to make the truth easier. He was using them to conceal it, to hide a treasure inside an ordinary-looking story, so that only the people who really wanted it, who were willing to lean in and dig, would ever find what was buried inside. That means every parable Jesus told has a trapdoor. On the surface, it is a story about farming or a wedding or a lost coin or a dishonest manager. Something so everyday that a distracted listener nods and moves on. But underneath that ordinary surface there is a hidden truth, often a shocking one, waiting for anyone who will stop and pull the floor up and... Here's the tragedy. Most people walk across that floor their entire lives and never once realize there is a door beneath their feet. So that is what we are going to do tonight. We are going to walk through every major parable Jesus told. There are around 40 of them grouped by what they are really about, and with each one, I am not going to stop at the nice surface moral. I am going to show you the one truth each parable is hiding underneath. The buried treasure Jesus tucked inside on purpose. The thing he wanted only the seekers to find. And I will warn you now, some of these hidden truths are not comfortable. The parable you thought was about a generous father is hiding a gut punch about you. The parable you thought was about a good neighbor is hiding a question that flipped the whole thing around. Story about a wedding feast is hiding a warning. Jesus did not bury these truths because they were small. He buried them because they were powerful. Powerful enough to change you if you actually found them, and by the end you are going to see the deepest secret of all, that every one of these parables, underneath everything else it hides, is hiding the same person. Pull up enough trapdoors and you start to realize they all open into the same room. And standing in the middle of that room in story after story is Jesus himself. He is the sower. He is the treasure. He is the bridegroom. He is the rejected cornerstone. The parables are not just lessons about the kingdom. They're a hide and seek, and the one hiding in every single one of them. Because it changes the whole reason we are doing this. We are not gathering 40 nice moral lessons tonight, like collecting 40 fortune cookies. We are following a deliberate trail of clues that a master teacher laid down on purpose. Clues that all lead to the same place. Jesus could have simply announced every truth plainly. Instead, he chose again and again to wrap the truth in a story and bury it just below the surface. He did that for a reason, and once you understand the reason, you will never read a parable the lazy way again. So let's start digging. Let me show you, but first we have to deal with that unsettling thing he said. Because if we do not understand why Jesus hid truth in stories, we will misread every parable that follows. The disciples asked why he used parables. Jesus said something stunning. To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. In other words, a parable does two opposite things at the same time. To the humble, hungry heart it reveals the proud, indifferent heart it conceals. The very same story that opens up like a flower for the seeker stays locked shut for the scoffer. The parable itself sorts the crowd, and that is actually a mercy. Think about it. A parable lets a person sit with the truth without being clobbered by it. Heresies could hear the story of the vineyard tenants and feel it sting slowly before they fully realized he was talking about them. A parable slips past our defenses. A direct accusation makes us put up a wall. Story walks around the wall and ambushes us from the inside. That is why the prophet Nathan told King David a little story about a rich man stealing a poor man's lamb, and David condemned himself before he ever realized story was about him. That is the power of a parable. It gets the verdict out of you before you can defend yourself. So a parable is really three things at once. It is a mirror. It shows you yourself if you are honest enough to look. It is a sieve. It's separates the seekers from the scoffers. And it is a seed. It plants a truth, small and quiet, that can grow in you for years. Keep all three in mind as we go, because the question every parable is secretly asking is not, do you understand the story? The question is, what kind of soil are you? And here is one more thing to hold on to before we start. Jesus' parables almost always have a twist, a moment where the story turns and does something you did not expect. The hero is the despised foreigner. The villain is the respectable older brother. The man who prayed the worst-sounding prayer goes home justified. The last-minute workers get paid the same as the all-day workers. That twist is not an accident. It is the trapdoor. It is the exact place where the surface story breaks and the hidden truth falls out. So, as we walk these stories, watch for the moment that surprises you, the part that feels almost unfair or upside down. That jolt is Jesus prying up the floorboard. Now let's find out what they hide. The largest group of parables all begin the same way. The kingdom of heaven is like. Jesus is describing a kingdom you cannot see with your eyes, and each story pulls back the curtain on a different part of it. He starts with the parable of the sower. A farmer scatters seed. It falls on a hard path, on rocky ground, among thorns, and on good soil. And only the good soil bears fruit. The surface morale seems to be good soil. The hidden truth is sharper than that seed is always good. Sower is always generous. The only variable in the entire story is the condition of the soil, which means the parable is quietly asking the most personal question imaginable. When the word of God falls on you, what happens to it? The problem is never the seed. The problem is the heart it lands on. And notice how specific Jesus gets about the ways a heart can fail. The hard path is the heart so packed down the truth cannot even penetrate. It bounces off, and the birds it away. The rocky ground is the heart that receives the word with instant excitement, but has no depth. So the moment trouble comes, it withers. The thorns are the most dangerous of all because nothing dramatic happens. The worries of life and the deceitfulness of wealth simply grow up and quietly choke the word until it produces nothing. Most people who lose the word do not lose it in a crisis. They lose it slowly, to thorns, to business, to worry, to the slow strangle of a comfortable life. Good wheat, and the owner refuses to pull them up early, lest he uproot the wheat with them. He waits till the hearts, the hidden truth, good and evil, are going to grow side by side, tangled together until the very end. We want God to root out all the evil now. He is being patient, partly because in pulling the weeds early, he might harm the wheat. Judgment is real, but it is coming at harvest, not before then. Two tiny twins, the mustard seed and the lever. The kingdom starts like the smallest seed of farmer plants and becomes a tree large enough for birds to nest in. It works like a pinch of yeast. A woman hides in a great lump of dough until the whole batch is transformed. The hidden truth in both. Do not despise small hidden beginnings. The kingdom of God almost never arrives with thunder and spectacle. It starts microscopically, a quiet conversation, a single changed heart, a seed of truth dropped into one life, a hidden work going on where no one can see it. And then, given time, it spreads through everything and takes over the whole loaf. What looks insignificant to you may be exactly the place where God is starting something enormous. Small thing you are tempted to. Dismiss the one prayer, the one act of obedience, the one person you witness to. Maybe the mustard seed of something that will outlive you, then the hidden treasure and the pearl of great price. A man finds treasure buried in a field and joyfully sells everything to buy that field. A merchant finds one perfect pearl and sells all he has to own it. The surface reading is the kingdom costs everything, but the hidden truth is, in one word, joy. The man sells everything gladly because he has seen what he is getting. This is not grim sacrifice. It is the math of someone who found something so valuable. That giving up everything else feels like the best trade he ever made. When you truly see the kingdom, you do not white-knuckle to surrender. You laugh all the way to the field. And then the dragnet, a net thrown into the sea that catches every kind of fish, and only at the shore are the goods separated from the bad. The hidden truth echoes the weeds. weeds. There is a real final sorting coming. The church, the world, the visible crowd of believers is a mixed net right now. Sure is coming, and everything gets sorted out at last. And let me pause for one quick favor. Chapter 15, Jesus tells 3 stories back to back, and they form the beating heart of everything he came to say. The religious leaders had just sneered that he welcomed sinners and ate with them. So he answered with 3 parables about lost things. The lost sheep, a shepherd leaves 99 to go after one. The lost coin, a woman turns the whole house upside down for a single missing coin and throws a party when she finds it. The hidden truth in both. Heaven's joy is not triggered by the crowd of the respectable who stayed. It erupts over the one who is lost and is found. God is not a careful accountant, calmly tallying saved. He is a shepherd running over rough ground and a woman sweeping in the dark. And when the lost one turns up, all of heaven throws a party. You were never a rounding error to him. You were the one he went out into the dark to find. And then the greatest short story ever told, the prodigal son. A younger son demands his inheritance, essentially wishing his father dead, wastes it all, hits rock bottom feeding pigs in a far country, and comes crawling home rehearsing an apology, hoping only to be taken on as a hired servant. And the father, while the boy is still far off, runs a dignified Middle Eastern man who would never run, hiking up his robes and sprinting down the road in front of the whole village to reach his ruin. And before the boy can even finish his speech and throws a feast with the best robe, a ring, and the fattened calf. That is the part everyone knows, and it is the most beautiful picture of the Father's heart in all of Scripture. But here is the hidden truth most people miss entirely. The parable does not end with the prodigal. It ends with the older brother, the one who stayed home, did everything right, and stands outside the party, seething with resentment, refusing to go in, complaining that he never got so much as a young goat for a party with his friends. And the story stops there, unresolved, with the father out in the dark, pleading with the angry older son to come inside. Why does Jesus end it on that cliffhanger? Because Jesus was telling this story to the older brothers, to the religious leaders standing right in front of him who did everything right and despised the grace he was showing to sinners and tax collectors. The hidden gut punch is this. You can be lost in your Father's house. The party a calm, please, stranger to your Father's heart. The younger son's sin was obvious and loud. The older son's sin was hidden underneath his obedience. A cold, proud, joyless heart. And it was just as deadly, maybe more because he didn't even know he was lost. And the 2 debtors? A quick parable Jesus tells to a Pharisee while a sinful woman washes his feet with her tears. 2 men are forgiven debts, one large and one small. Which will love the lender more, the one forgiven more? The hidden truth: the people who love Jesus most extravagantly are usually the ones who know exactly how much they have been forgiven. If your love for God feels cold, it may be because you have forgotten the size of your own debt. Jesus told a cluster of parables about prayer, and they are not the polite, gentle lessons you might expect. The friend at midnight, a man bangs on his neighbor's door at midnight begging for bread for a guest, and gets it, not because of friendship, but because of his shameless persistence. The persistent widow and a powerless woman wears door-up judge by simply refusing to stop coming. The hidden truth in both is almost scandalous. Jesus is comparing God to a sleepy neighbor and a crooked judge, not because God is like them. By stark contrast, if even a reluctant neighbor and an unjust judge will eventually respond to persistence, how much more? Will a good father respond to his children who keep coming? The hidden lesson is permission. Permission to be persistent, to keep knocking, to refuse to give up in prayer. Because the one you are knocking on is nothing like that judge. And then the parable that should be printed over every church door. The Pharisee and the tax collector. 2 men go up to pray. The Pharisee stands and thanks God that he is not like other people, lists his impressive resume. The tax collector won't even lift his eyes. He beats his chest and says, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." And Jesus drops the verdict. It was the tax collector who went home justified, not the Pharisee. The hidden truth is the thing the religious mind can least accept. God is not impressed by your spiritual highlight reel. The prayer that moves heaven is not "look how good I am," it is "have mercy on me." The one who came with empty hands went home full. The one who came full went home empty. And right here, if even one of these has put its finger on something in you, would you share this video with one person? Someone you love may need to find the trapdoor in one of these stories tonight. Send it to them. Then come right back, because the next parables are about how we treat each other, and one of them flips a famous question completely around. Now the parables turn outward to the people around us. A Good Samaritan. Everyone knows it. A man is beaten and left for dead on the dangerous road down to Jericho. A priest and a Levite, the religious professionals, the very people you'd expect to help, both see him and cross to the other side. And then a Samaritan, a man from a despised, hated group, stops, binds his wounds, pours on oil and wine, puts him on his own animal, and pays an innkeeper to care for him. We have flattened this into be nice to strangers. But look at the hidden truth, because it is hiding in the question. A lawyer had asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" and he asked it, the text says, wanting to justify himself. He wanted a definition. Who qualifies for my love? Where exactly can I draw the line and still be righteous? And at the end of the story, Jesus does not answer that question. He reverses it. He asks which one of these was a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers. Do you see what he did? The lawyer wanted to define who deserved his love so he could limit it, draw a circle, and keep the people outside it at arm's length. Jesus refused to let him draw the line at all, and instead turned the whole thing inside out. Stop asking who qualifies. Ask whether you are being a neighbor. The hidden truth mercy does not ask who deserves it. It just sees the person bleeding in the ditch, even if that person is your enemy. And it stops. Then the unforgiving servant. A servant is forgiven an unpayable astronomical debt by his king, and then walks straight out and throttles a fellow servant over a tiny one. The king, hearing of it, hands him over to the jailers. If you have truly grasped the mountain of debt God canceled for you, you cannot then clutch someone's small offense against you and refuse to let it go. An unforgiving Christian has forgotten the size of their own forgiveness. The math doesn't work. And Jesus says it endangers the soul. And the rich man and Lazarus. A rich man feasts daily, while a beggar named Lazarus starves at his gate. Both die, and everything reverses. Lazarus is carried to comfort. The rich man is informant, begging for a drop of water. The hidden truth, though. Rich man, sin was not that he was cruel. He never kicked Lazarus. His sin was that he simply did not see him. A starving man at his own gate. It's every single day invisible. The hidden warning is to all of us who can walk past suffering without it registering great reversal in coming, and the people we have learned not to see are seen perfectly by God. Then there is a whole group of parables about what you do with what you have been given, and whether you are ready for the king's return. The rich fool, a man whose barns overflow, decides to build bigger barns and tell his soul to relax, eat, and be merry. And God says, "Fool, this night your soul is required of you." The hidden truth, he was not condemned for being wealthy, but for being rich toward himself and not rich toward God. He built his whole life around a future that he did not actually control. You can spend your one life accumulating and still die spiritually bankrupt. The talents a master entrusts different amounts of 3 servants to invest and multiply. One buries his in fear and gives back exactly what he got. The hidden truth. The buried talent was not lost. It was unused, and that was the offense. God will not ask why you weren't someone else. He will ask what you did with what he gave you. The sin in the story is not failure, it is faithlessness, playing it safe with the gifts of a generous God. The 10 virgins, 10 wait for the bridegroom. 5 bring extra oil for their lamps. 5 do not. The bridegroom is delayed, the foolish run out, and while they go to buy more, the door is shut. The hidden truth is sobering. Some things cannot be borrowed at the last minute. When the foolish virgins begged the wise ones for oil, the wise ones could not share it, not because they were selfish, but because this particular thing simply cannot be transferred from one person to another. There is a readiness, a real personal relationship with God, a lamp you have actually kept filled over time that you cannot get secondhand. You cannot borrow it from your believing parents. You cannot inherit it from your church. You cannot cram for it the night the bridegroom comes. You have to have your own oil, your own walk with God, your own lamp burning. And the most frightening line in the parable is the bridegroom's reply from behind the shut door. I do not know you. Not. You arrived late, but I never knew you. Readiness, in the end, is relationship. The great banquet. A man throws a great feast, and the invited guests all make excuses. I bought a field, I bought oxen. I just got married. So the master fills his house with the poor, the crippled, the outsiders from the streets. The hidden truth hell is largely populated by people with reasonable excuses. Nobody in the story refuses out of hatred. They refuse because they have something slightly better to do. The most dangerous thing, keeping people from God, is not great evil. It is ordinary respectable dizziness and the faithful and wicked servants. Two servants left in charge while the master is away. One keeps working faithfully. The other says my master is delayed and starts abusing the others and getting drunk. The hidden truth, what you do when you think no one is watching, when the master delays, reveals who you really are. Faithfulness is not how you act on inspection day. It is how you live in the long ordinary wait, and a final group cuts straight at the difference between appearing right and being right. The two builders, one builds his house on rock, one on sand. The storm comes and only the house on rock stands. And here is the hidden truth most people miss. Both men heard the same words of Jesus. The only difference between them was that one did them and one did not. Hearing the truth is not the same as building on it. A life that hears every sermon and obeys none is a beautiful house with no foundation waiting for the first storm to expose it. The two sons a father asks both sons to work in the vineyard. One says no, but later goes. The other says yes, sir, but never goes. Which did the Father's will? The one who actually went. The hidden truth. God is not fooled by the right words. There are people who say all the right things and never obey, and people who resist at first and then actually do what God asked. Heaven counts the second kind as the obedient ones. Talk is not obedience. The wicked vineyard tenants. A landowner leases his vineyard, and the tenants beat and kill every servant he sends to collect the fruit and finally murder his son, thinking they will seize the inheritance. Torch mate, and the murdered scientists physically why they wanted him dead. This parable, prophecy of the cross, bold days before it happened with a hidden line that quotes scripture. Stone, the builders rejected, had begun. Become the cornerstone, and the barren fig tree, a tree that produces no fruit for 3 years. The owner wants to cut it down, but the gardener pleads for 1 more year, dig around it and fertilize it. The hidden truth is a tender warning. God's patience is real, but it is not infinite. There is mercy. 1 more season, 1 more chance. The gardener pleading on your behalf, but the patience has a purpose. Fruit. Grace is not a permanent excuse to stay barren. It is breathing room to finally come alive. And now we come to the deepest secret of all, the trapdoor beneath all the other trapdoors. Because once you have walked through enough of these parables, you start to notice that the same figure keeps appearing in disguise. Pull up the floor of story after story, and standing underneath is the same person. Who is the sower scattering the seed of the word into the world? It is Jesus, who is the shepherd leaving the 99 to go after the one lost sheep into the dark. It is Jesus. Who would carry that lost sheep home on a cross? Who is the treasurer in the field worth selling everything to gain? He is, but flip it over and there is an even more staggering reading. You are the treasure, and he is the one who sold everything he had to buy the field. Who is the bridegroom? The virgins are waiting for Jesus. Who is the master? Who returns to settle accounts? Jesus. Who is the murdered son in the vineyard? The rejected stone that became the cornerstone? Jesus telling his own death before it happened? And look again at the prodigal son. We always read it as a story about a wayward boy. But who paid for that feast? Who absorbed the cost of the wasted inheritance and the killed, fatted calf? The father did, and in the real story, the price of welcoming prodigals home was paid by the father's own son on a cross. The Good Samaritan who crossed the road, bound up the wounds of a dying enemy and paid his debt in full. That is a picture of Jesus who crossed the infinite distance from heaven to find us beaten and dying by the road, paid everything to heal us. Do you see it now? Parables are not just clever lessons about the kingdom. They're a long game of hide and seek, and the one hiding in every story is the king himself. He is the sower and the seed, the shepherd and the lamb, the treasure and the buyer, the bridegroom and the door, the rejected son and the returning master. Every parable with, quietly about him the whole time. The deepest truth each one hides is Jesus, and that changes how you read every one of them. Because the parables are not finally asking, are you a good person? They're asking, do you see him? Have you found the one hidden in the field, and have you with joy given everything to have him? And once you see him in them, the parables stop being a list of demands and become an invitation. Because if Jesus is the shepherd, then you do not have to be strong enough to find your own way home. He comes after you. If Jesus is the Father running down the road, then you do not have to clean yourself up before you come back. He runs to meet you while you are still a long way off, still rehearsing your apology. If Jesus is the Samaritan who paid the full bill at the end, then your debt is already covered. He paid what you could never pay. The parables are not first about what you must do for God. They're about what God in Christ has already done to find you, forgive you, and bring you home. Every demand they make of you rests on a gift is already given. That is the order. Grace first, then the call to live it. Here's a picture I want you to hold on to. Think about a seed. If you have never seen one grow, a seed looks like nothing. A small, dry, hard little shell you could hold a dozen of in your palm and toss away without a thought. There is no way, looking at it, to guess what is folded up inside. But put that same plain seed into good soil, give it time and water and warmth, and that hard little shell cracks open, and out of something that looked like nothing comes a living thing that grows into a tree full of fruit and birds and shade. That is exactly what a parable is. You could hear it shrug and toss it away, and most people do. But drop that same story into an honest heart, into good soil, and the hard shell cracks open, and the hidden truth inside begins to grow. And it keeps growing. A parable you've got at age 10 will crack open again at age 40 and show you something you never saw. That is the genius of how Jesus taught. He did not hand out conclusions you could memorize and forget. He planted seeds, living truths, and plain shells that would keep growing in you for the rest of your life. As long as your heart stays soft enough, the soil. So the question the parables leave you with is the question the sower asked from the very beginning. Not did you hear the story, but kind of soil are you? So let me leave you with three things to carry with you tonight. First, do not just hear dig. Jesus deliberately buried the treasure so that only the seekers would find it. So be a seeker. Do not skim these stories ever again. When you read a parable, stop and ask, what is hiding under here? What is the trap for? And then ask the harder question. Sower asked, what kind of soil am I? Is the word landing on a hard path in shallow rocks, among the thorns of worry and wealth, or in soft, ready ground? You cannot change the seed, but by God's grace, you can let Him break up the hard soil of your own heart. Second, find yourself in the story. Here's something that will transform how you read every parable. You are a character in each one. You are the soil. You are one of the two builders. You are the older brother or the younger. You are the servant who buried the talent or the one who used it. You are the Pharisee at the front praying about himself or the broken man in the back begging for mercy. Do not read these as stories about other people. Read them as mirrors and have the courage to ask which character is actually you, because that is the one Jesus is talking to. And third, the one that matters most. Find him in the story. Remember the deepest secret. Every parable is finally hiding the same person. So when you read them, do not stop at the moral. Keep digging until you find Jesus, the shepherd who came after you, the father who ran to you, the Samaritan who paid your debt, the treasure worth more than everything you own. Because the parables were never mainly about being a better person. They were about a king who hid himself in ordinary stories so that the people who really wanted him would seek him until they found him. So here is the whole thing in one breath. The parables are not simple little morals. They are stories with trapdoors, each one hiding a powerful truth Jesus buried on purpose. And underneath all of them, hiding in every single field, is Jesus himself. So stop skimming, become good soil, find yourself in the story, find him in the story, and give up everything with joy for the treasure you find buried there. This is one more word in a much bigger story. And tonight it was every parable and the truth each one hides. Every story we cracked open, every trap door we pulled up, it all kept leading back to the same place, to the same person, the risen Christ hidden in every field, who buried himself in ordinary stories so that you would seek him until you found him. So if you